Hello, in this video, we will implement create in CRUD operation using repository pattern and create a web API. So the following are the steps for this video. First, we will create and implement a generic repository. Then, we will create a custom repository for customer. After that, we will create CustomerDTO, a data transfer object. Then we will install AutoMapper extension. After that, we'll create a base API controller, which will be inherited by customer controller. Then we will add mapping profile for customer. Then we'll add services. First, we will add the customer repository in startup configuration services and also add AutoMapper. Then we will test the result. Next, we will create another API, this time for membership API. First step will be create membership repository, and then we will add the services to the startup configure service. We will then create membership TTO. After that, we'll add it to the mapping profile, and then create membership controller and test for result. If you want to follow along, which I recommend, you can download the code from this GitHub repository. Link will be provided in video description below. This code is actually acquired from our Entity Framework Code First class. Hi, my name is Eugene, and my mission is to spread lifelong learning. I've been into programming for more than 10 years, but now more than ever, there are more things to learn. Join me as we explore the world of programming. Right now, our focus is not technology, but we are not limiting ourselves to that. There are plans to include other topics like React, React Native, and others. So please comment below for topics you would like to be included. So first, let's go to our Git repository. Then click here, code, and then click the clipboard. Make sure it's in the HTTPS. In command prompt, go to your desired folder, then input git clone space the repository and then the folder name you want. So I'll put customer management. Then it should clone and it should be in your folder. So now we have opened the application in Visual Studio Code. We can see now there are 71 error, mainly because of dependency, so we need to run the application. So we'll go to cd API, then .NET watch run. Okay, so while the application is building, we'll discuss briefly what the customer management has. So in the entity, we have two classes there. So the customer, just first name, last name, gender, email, birth date, and it's connected to the membership code. And we'll go to the membership table. Basically, this has membership code, title, and then description. So maybe we'll clean up also, remove, and then so we have here the DB context to show this in the database, and then we have seed to create the initial input for the membership table. And now, and this one is a API project, but we are not using this one yet. There's the basic input by Microsoft, so we'll remove that later on. So now you can see the problems are gone. Then we will continue with the development. For the first step, we will add the IRepository interface. So let's go to data and create a folder. Call that repository. So maybe we'll add a class also. Repository. Then we'll add an interface. IRepository. Okay, after that, so in the repository, we will input a generic, which will be T, where T is a class. Okay, so this repository basically is a generic repository for all other repository will be creating, like for customer and membership. So we'll now add the add async. So task T add async. T as new entity. Okay, we'll solve the dependency using threading tasks. Okay, we're done with the iRepository part. So I figured it would be cleaner if we add an interface folder here. Interface. Simply put the iRepository there. Okay. So because we move it from repository to interface, we need to update the namespace. Add interface dot repository. Oh, no. It's data dot repository dot interface. Okay, that's it. So next we'll update the repository. Let's go to repository. Okay, this is a public class repository. We'll just add the generic to pass it to iRepository. T, where T is a class also. Okay, because this we need to add the dependency. So basically repository implements iRepository. Then we create a constructor, ctor, then pass here the data context. Data context. Data context. Okay. We'll initialize field from parameter. Okay. In your machine, there could be no underscore. Basically, we just need to update our configuration in VS Code to achieve that. Maybe I'll discuss that on a later video, but you can add the underscore on your own for now. Then, we'll implement the add async. So here you can click implement interface. Click and then control that implement interface. So because this is a task, we want to become async, so we will add async here. Async. and then we'll do the implementation. Underscore data context, that's set. We set the type we provided, then add new entity. Okay. Oh, it's data context. Okay, then we await to do the save. We await the save. Underscore data context that save changes async. Okay, then we will return the new entity. Okay, we'll resolve the so this should be a method. Okay, we're done adding the repository. So next we'll add another interface, ICustomer Repository. We'll just clean up the screen. So in the interface, we right click and then new interface. So ICustomer Repository, and then this will implement the IRepository. So basically this is a customer implementation of the IRepository. So we need to resolve this using data entity. Okay, so here you can put your custom implementation. For example, your customer repository have specialized implementation like get customer by name, first name, which other repository won't have. So you can put it here. So the IRepository will be mostly for generic one, the CRUD operation, basic CRUD operation. That's all. Now let's create customer repository. So we right click, add new class, customer repository. And then this will inherit the repository class, customer. Okay. Then also inherit ICustomer Repository. Okay, so we just resolve the dependencies using entity. Okay, then we'll call the constructor, create a constructor. Then this will pass the data context. Data context. Then pass this data context to the base class. Okay, because this repository needs data context. Okay, that's it for the customer repository. We won't be implementing a custom implementation yet, so we won't be adding methods here for this video. Okay, so now let's create DTO, data transfer object. So we'll create a new folder in the API project, DTO, and then here we'll implement the class, the class CustomerDTO. So to make things faster, we go to the entity, then copy this, maybe clean this. Okay, copy the details for the customer class, paste it in the DTO, and then let's remove first the so let's do a cleanup. Control that first for the using statement, and then we don't want this to look like our database, so we'll instead change to string length 100. Delete string length 100. And then this one, the last name, also 100. Okay, and then for the gender it's 50, so we just use this to be standard, 50. And then the email is 100. Birth date, it's a date, so we'll use this. So we want this to require a date input without the time, so we'll use this date, data type that date. Okay, later we'll test that. So then control that using system, and for the membership code, varchar 6. String length 6. Then we'll remove this. Okay, so now this is the customer DTO. Next, we'll be adding AutoMapper to our project. Control Shift P, then NuGet, and then we'll find AutoMapper. We'll want this. Let's minimize this first. AutoMapper extension .Microsoft dependency section. Okay, and implement this in the API layer. Install. Okay, restoring. Okay, it should be no error. Let's close this one. Okay, next step will be adding base API controller. This will be where the common code for the API will be stored so that we won't need to duplicate them. So we'll add here in the controller, right click, class, base API controller. So this will inherit from controller base. Then we can add different attributes to this one, like API controller, and then the route we want this to be API / controller. So now we'll implement our customer controller. Add class, customer controller. This will inherit from our base API controller. And we'll create a constructor. Data context. And then we'll include here the IMapper for our AutoMapper. So using AutoMapper, using data, then control dot initialize field from parameter. We'll add the mapper here, and then we'll create an instance of our customer repository. Customer repository. So first, let's create a read-only, private, read-only customer repository. As customer repository, control that here, using data repository. And then customer repository equals new customer repository. Then we'll pass in the data context here. Close. Next, we'll create the method create method. So public, we want this to be async. It returns task of iAction result. Okay. Then we'll call this as create method. Pass in CustomerDTO as our input. Okay. So we create a new instance of customer. Customer equals new customer. Okay, so we'll resolve the dependency threading. MVC. Then from our data entity, from our data layer. Next, we'll map this to using AutoMapper. Underscore mapper dot map from CustomerDTO, from our input, to the output customer. Okay, so I should not place a comma here. CustomerDTO. Okay, we should be adding API.DTO. Then we will call await customer repository that add async customer. Then we will return OK customer.id. Okay, we're done here. So one thing we forgot is to add HTTP post. Okay, save. Okay. So to fully implement AutoMapper, we'll need to add a mapping profile. So we'll add a new folder here in the API layer. Add a new folder, common. Add a new class, mapping profiles. And this will inherit profile from AutoMapper. Then this will have a method, public mapping profiles. This will have a create map from CustomerDTO, the input to customer class. Then we'll add some dependency. Okay. Next, we'll add services. So go to Startup, configure services. We'll add services that add transient ICustomer Repository. We'll implement Customer Repository. So it's clear that when you use ICustomer Repository, it should implement Customer Repository. Then another service, add AutoMapper. Type of, we'll put here our mapping profile. That assembly. Control dot using API common. So now let's test our API. We can see now the customer. And then we click this, try it out. Then we'll fix the input. First name is first, last name is last. Gender, we'll put maybe M. Email, we'll put test@test.com. Birth date. Okay, then membership code will be gold. And let's click execute. Okay, response body 1, which is the ID. So if you run a query against our database, you should see this result. So there's one row created with the first name, last name, gender, membership code, birth date, all according to what we've created earlier. So now let's proceed creating the membership API. So first we'll create a repository. So we'll create an interface first. Add interface. IMembership repository. Okay, then this should inherit from IRepository of membership. Then we will just resolve the dependency and save. Next, we will implement the membership repository. So in the repository, right click, add the class, membership repository. Then this should inherit from the repository. Then we will pass in membership. Then inherit from IMembership repository. And then we'll just fix the dependencies. And then we will implement the base class. So let's create a constructor. We will pass the data context to the base class. Data context, base data context. Okay, is it the same? And maybe it's cleaner if we go to the next line. Okay. Now we'll go to startup and then add the membership repository as a service. Copy this, paste, then basically you're just saying that for the implementation of the iMembership repository, please use membership repository. So this can be handy if you were going to do unit testing. You can replace this with SQL mock membership repository. So now let's create the membership DTO. So here let's add a new class, membership DTO, data transfer object. Then we go to the entity, create a copy, clean this up. So maybe just copy this, membership DTO. So we want to remove most of this part. So we just want the string length. So we'll change this to string length 6. Solve the dependency, data annotation, and then we want this to still to be required, but change the length to 10. And then 200. So you can add space here to separate. So next we'll go add the mapping profile for the membership. So let's go to common, mapping profiles, and this time we'll create a map. Membership DTO, which will be our input, then we will convert it to membership, the database side. So next we'll create the membership API. We go to controllers, right click, create class, membership controller. So this will inherit from base API controller. Then we'll create a constructor, pass in data context, data context, then the IMapper. Okay, we'll resolve the dependencies, and then initialize field from parameter for the mapper because we'll use that later. Then now we'll create the membership repository. So we'll add the private field, private read only membership repository. Sorry. So membership repository. Okay, and then control that using data repository. And then we'll initialize membership repository equals new membership repository, passing in data context. Next we will create the create function. So HTTP post public async task of iAction result, create method, passing in membership DTO. Membership DTO. Then resolve. Okay, resolve this also. Then we'll initialize membership. Oh, sorry about that. Equals new membership. It's a bit difficult to see what the autocomplete will use. Okay, then we'll do a mapper. Mapper.map. Okay, so from the membership DTO to membership. So we will await membership repository that add async membership. Okay, then return okay. So now in your Swagger, you should be able to see membership. Then we can go ahead and try it out. So we'll add a new membership code, Diamond. Title is Diamond. Then we'll put a description, customer accumulating 2,000 spend, enjoy 15% discount. Okay, then let's try to execute. Okay, success. Okay, if we go back to our SQL Management Studio, then run the command, select top 1000, 5, you should see the diamond. Okay. So to summarize, these are the things that we have done. We've created a generic repository and a specific one for customer and membership. Then we created a data transfer object, DTO, and use AutoMapper to map from the presentation layer, which is the API, to the entity, which is in the data layer. And then we add mapping, profile for each, and then we created the web API controller base, wherein we inherit this to our web API controller for the membership and the customer. Lastly, we registered necessary services. So that's all for this video. Please consider subscribing. It will make my day. If you have a better approach, just let me know using the comment below. I'd gladly update or do a comparison video, or even create an alternative approach. Please hit the like button if you learned something new. Thank you and good day.